Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Sion? Here. Mr. Halpin?
Here.
Mr. Nasilevich?
Here.
Ms. Wagner?
Here.
Mr. Haber?
Here. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. Let me take a moment and outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is going to be presented by our staff. Then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chair. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium here in the center. After being recognized, speak into the microphone, state their name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony will be given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of previous testimony. Any and all persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. Anyone who wants to give testimony, whether you think you're going to or whether you are, I would ask that you please stand and raise your right hand. Anyone who thinks that they're going to provide any testimony tonight, even if you think you might, please stand. All persons who give testimony, please stand, raise your right hand, and swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, then getting into tonight's agenda, are there any changes, additions to tonight's agenda?
No, there are not.
There are no. Can I just get a quick motion, and we'll do by voice vote approval of the agenda?
I'll motion that we approve the agenda as it is.
We have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are going with our agenda. Number 2 on our agenda is approval of minutes from September 7th, 2017. I believe you all received copies, and I do think we have an amended copy here. Any additional comments or revisions to it? If none, a motion, please.
I move that we approve the minutes as stated or written.
Okay.
Second motion.
We have a motion and second to approve the minutes of September 7th. I'm going to ask the secretary to take a roll call on this, please.
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye. Thank you. Wasn't sure if we had somebody not here. Anyway, we are good to go then on start of our cases. So number 3 on our agenda, consideration of case 23-2017 BZA, a variance request for a front yard setback. And I'd ask if staff would give their report, please.
So before we get started, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce our new staff member, Brad Bowers. He's the new planner in our office, and he will be staffing BZA with me.
Cool, thank you, welcome.
No problem. The next two cases are on our agenda actually just asked for a continuance, so I don't know how to handle that. I can either read through both cases or do one case and then the next, or if they know they need a continuance.
The appellant has approached you tonight and asked that these cases be continued.
Yes.
Discussion.
Why?
We could look at them tonight, but same for the next meeting. Is that, I know we've done that before.
Yes, we have done that before.
You want to go through public testimony tonight?
I think if they're here tonight, I think that's kind of how we've handled it in the past.
Okay.
Okay. Are we in
But
agreement?
we won't vote tonight.
We won't vote tonight. We will do a public portion of our meeting and keep the public meeting open,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
But I think what I'm hearing you saying, we've got people that have shown up tonight, and we should go through at least the public hearing portion of the case.
That's one option, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't understand what the reason for the continuance is. Is it they're not prepared, or? It seems like we've got an audience for it,
Right,
and so I don't think we should be wasting time.
okay?
Is there new material that's going to be submitted? Do we know?
I do not know that.
Okay. Well, why don't we just go forward and hold our vote until, if it's brought to us. Yeah, let's make a discuss it now.
Okay.
We can do that.
So we're all in agreement that we're going to move forward with the public portion, the public hearing portion of these two cases?
Yes.
Okay? Then we will do that, and we will keep the public, let me say what we typically do is that we will have a public hearing portion of these cases, and we do that for all of the cases here tonight. That is that we can ask you questions, you will present your information, and then when we close that public hearing, there is no more discussion with you folks, and that we will then discuss the cases amongst ourselves, take a straw vote, and then take a final vote tonight. So what we are proposing, and what I believe that the board is agreeing upon, is that we are going to have the public hearing tonight, and we will not close that public hearing, so that we will continue these cases next month as well. Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Then let's move forward with the cases.
Okay,
please.
so our first case of the evening is case 23-2017 BZA. The applicant is Stan Messerly of Mesco Engineering on behalf of Rose Farm Rentals LLC, owned by John and Monica Adams, who are the property owners of Lot 22 Riverside Drive. It's page 253 and it's parcel number 18. This property is zoned both AA residential and B residential. They are requesting a variance for a front yard setback of 28 feet where 50 is required from the private drive per Article 3.1D2. So this property was purchased on November 14th, 2016 by the current owners and is a vacant lot. It's an extremely steep hill off of Riverside Drive on a private drive. We wanted it to be known that there were a couple of houses on Riverside that have been granted variances due to setbacks, including 7300 Riverside Drive for a front yard setback of 45.9 feet and a side yard setback of 23. Property 7323 Riverside for a variance to allow an accessory structure in the front yard. 7341 Riverside for a front yard setback of 22 feet 9 inches and a side yard setback of 19 feet 7 inches for an addition. And 7366 Riverside for a rear yard setback of 45 feet where 60 is required for a 2-story addition. So this is a map of the property. The private drive comes down this way and goes through both properties this way. But they do have a panhandle lot to Riverby Drive. So this is Riverby. This is an aerial map showing that it is still a vacant parcel. And then this is the topography map. So clearly you can see that it's a pretty steep slope from Riverby straight down. So this is the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. It currently shows the building window and just a example of where a house could go, along with their requested setback. So the following slides are pictures of this lot. We didn't really go down the hill a lot, but you can kind of see where it slopes down. So these are from the private drive looking west. This is standing from the private drive looking north up to the closest property. This is looking east up the private drive. East down, the private drive kind of goes across the two properties, and then there's some gravel and debris over on the east as well. This is looking towards the house on the west. That's currently the second house on the private drive. This is looking north once again up the hill to Riverby Drive. This picture is showing the retaining wall system that's currently at the existing house. And a little bit of the slope that you can kind of see continues down. And then this is from Riverby Drive, looking at that house that was shown in pictures earlier, so you can kind of see how visible this house is from Riverby Drive and that you can't really see the private drive at all. This is the first house on the private drive that you pass as you go down to get to the lot. And then case 24 is for Lot 23, Riverby Drive, also proposed by Stan Messerly of Mesco Engineering on behalf of Vancy Investments, which is also owned by John and Monica Adams. The zoning is also AA residence and B residence. They are requesting a variance of 20 feet where 50 is required from the private drive. So it is the adjoining property. Again, the private drive comes down this way and goes across. Their panhandle is up the right-hand side of the property to get to Riverby Drive. This is the aerial of the property. And again, this is the topography map showing the increased slope down the hill. This is the same site plan. Both lots were listed on it, so Lot 22 and Lot 23. These are the same pictures that were shown before. Again, just really trying to show the vegetation that's currently there, the slope down from Riverby Drive, and the adjoining neighbors. So our staff findings for case 24 are similar to case 23, but staff finds that the variance is not substantial. There are severe changes in elevation in the southern part of the property, and it may be cost prohibitive to build any further back. The essential character of the neighborhood may not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties may not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The location proposed for the new single-family house is at a substantially lower elevation from the other houses. However, there is a residence already constructed on Riverby Drive directly in front of this property, but there is a 100-foot difference in grade from Riverby Drive to the middle of the private drive in front of Lot 22 and 23. However, no architectural renderings were submitted to determine the compatibility with surrounding homes or how high this home will be. The variance will not adversely affect delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through some other method other than a variance. While they could potentially build farther down the hill, as stated, it would increase construction costs and potentially increase hillside disturbance.
Okay. Questions for staff?
None from me.
Anything?
Is lot 24, is there any proposal or anything that's a separate lot?
Yes, it's owned by a different property owner as well.
Okay. And I assume a lot of these easements are already in place for the private drive?
Yes.
Any other questions? Would the appellant or the appellant's rep please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, state your name, address, any affiliation, and present your appeal, please?
Hi, my name is Stan Messerly with Mesco Engineering. My business is 2766 Wasson Road, Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm here representing the owner for the two proposed variances at lot 22 and 23 on Riverby. You know, I guess first off, maybe explain a little bit what why we had requested a potential extension of the hearing or continuance. The owner, John Adams, has been working with the adjoining property owners to address any concerns they may have relative to the variance. And there had been identified a couple property owners that did have concerns. The property owner that has a vacant lot directly north of lot 22, and then the property owner that has a lot to the north and east of lot 23, existing house on that particular lot. We thought there was a situation that had been resolved relative to their concern. I just found out right at the start of the meeting that there was some, I'm not sure confusion is the proper word, but there was a different interpretation of that agreement, and as a result, we need to revisit both neighbors to make sure, we're of the opinion it would be to everybody's benefit, including myself and the owner, that we come in to request this variance with the agreement from the adjoining property owners that are immediately impacted by the potential variance. So that's what transpired. We apologize. I think we tried our best to get that agreement in place before we got here, but unfortunately it resulted at the start of the meeting that officially wasn't. So that's what transpired. I apologize.
Questions to the appellant?
Do you know the estimated values of the homes that are being proposed on each lot?
Pardon me?
Do you know what the estimated values of the homes being proposed?
I don't know. I don't know, John.
I could estimate a finished product. My guess is, I'm sorry.
Please come up to the podium and identify yourself, please.
I'm John Adams.
Okay.
I'm the property owner, my wife
And
and
your
I.
address?
7360 Riverby Drive.
Thank you.
So, an estimation of the finished product home on that, each of those lots, my guess would be in the, 1.25 to 1.25 million and up, depending upon the size.
Other questions?
Are they objecting because of the location, or are they objecting for another reason?
What we were striving for was a contingency on the variance that would limit the height of the proposed structure if the proposed structure utilized the variance, and we had a number that we had established for each of the lots for that, and as we further clarified what that number represented right before the meeting, there was some concern with that number.
So the
we
height
needed-
of the house might block their view, is that the concern? or-
That's what the approach was, yes, that we were trying to address any concerns they might have relative to their view from above to the proposed structures below.
So their concern isn't the location of the house so as much as it is for the height of the house?
Well, they're kind of tied together, I guess, I'm thinking, because if you move forward towards the road, you're moving up the hill.
Okay.
And if you take, in essence, the same house and have it set back farther, moving up, then it's going to be higher. So by moving forward, it results in the house being taller, in essence.
Yeah.
If you could put that map that we submitted that shows,
That's a really good view there, actually, that picture.
so, okay, go ahead, do the map. Okay, and I'll probably butcher this, and Stan will bail me out. I'm not an engineer. So what we tried to do is I live on River By personally, my wife and I, and we love where we live. We love the street. We love the area. I grew up in Anderson Township, moved back after 15 years living in Claremont County. So what we tried to do is the house at the end of the private lane, which it would be on my left, we tried to mimic a house that would be that height. And that's a two-level home where the lower level is the basement, and then the ground level is the first floor. So we measured the peak of the top of that home. And we tried to say, okay, if somebody builds on these two lots, I want to be a good neighbor, so I wouldn't want a three-story house that's obstructing a view. So that's kind of the premise that we worked backwards from. We measured it and then kind of applied it to these. So the lot directly north of the, lot 22, the vacant lot there, we want to make sure the neighbors, and that the gentleman that owns that is concerned if a home goes at the bottom, which I understand is concerned. If a home goes at the bottom, it might potentially block the view if somebody built at the south side of that lot on the private lane. So we thought we were in a decent spot, and there was, he's not an engineer, just like I'm not an engineer, and Stan is an engineer, where it's the midpoint of the gable, that calculation. And that's when we just found out tonight that he didn't understand that, nor did I, until Stan told me over the last several weeks. So that's kind of what kind of caused the concern here this evening. And then the other neighbor that had, input, rightfully so, because it looks like lot 14 as you go down the private drive, that home there, and she was concerned about blocking her view, and that's why, we reached out and they reached out, and they're friends, but I understand it. So we're trying to make everybody, relatively happy, so to speak.
And what height were you proposing, or you had originally agreed upon?
We had a number of 632 mean sea level for lot 22 and 628 for lot 23.
Because there's a difference in elevation.
That would allow us, generally speaking, the elevation of the private drive at lot 22 is 616, 617. So that would allow us in the 15-foot or so from the elevation of the private drive up. At the midpoint of the gable, that would be an acceptable situation from John's perspective. Because we would envision, a gable-type scenario. It would certainly meet the architecture of the other lots, which is part of the requirement of the covenants of the subdivision. But that was where the concern came right before the meeting, that the midpoint versus the ridge line.
So you're not going to move it closer to the lane. If you do anything, you're going to probably move it closer to the river, or closest to the south.
Well, what we would look to do would be to be able to present to you a contingency number that the variance would be based upon the height as defined by what it would tell you, whether it's the maximum point of the ridge line or the point, the height is defined by Aaron Township zoning code, but it's at this elevation, and then we could at that same time tell you that the neighbors are in agreement with that elevation also. That's what we had intended to do, or do intend to do.
But I guess you're not going to be going 18 feet. If anything, you're going to go from 20 feet maybe to 25 feet.
No, we would actually, I would anticipate that the neighbor's request would be that that elevation would come down. So maybe, or that elevation would specify, that 632 would potentially specify, let's say, for instance, the ridge point of the roof as opposed to the midpoint of the gable.
So that would push the house closer to the south,
No,
wouldn't
we
it?
wouldn't anticipate changing the requested variance setback. It would just be the change in what we would specify in the contingency to that setback.
So all we're addressing, though, is the setback. We're not addressing the height of the house.
Well, we were under the understanding that it would be something that, in order to address the neighbor's concern, that we could make that a part of the contingency for the variance, assuming it was an approval, so that we could, then the neighbors could provide their support for that request also.
That can be done.
Makes sense to me.
Does that make sense to?
Yeah, the height of
He's
the...
our engineer.
The height of the house, the height of the house must conform to the zoning code.
Right.
Okay, so we're not talking about, at least they haven't come here and said that they're looking for a variance for the height. They're only looking for a variance from the location.
Correct.
And then working out what that height can be with the neighbors. Okay, so if they did move it closer, like you're saying, if they moved it closer to the river, well, then the height would go down.
Right, but the setback would move from 20 feet, let's say, to 25 feet, because you're moving away from the lane. So if we were to, say, approve it at 20 feet, as long as it didn't go closer to the lane, I don't know where it's necessary to come back to us, because all we're doing is looking at a variance on the setback. We're not, are we? Looking at a
That's all we're
variance?
voting on.
Right. So all we're voting on is the variance for the setback, not the height. That's a zone.
But they're trying to come back with approval from the neighbors.
We were just trying to get the
Okay.
neighbors in a,
And
you
then with
know,
their approval, it's easier for us to vote
Yeah.
in favor.
But we would hear their objections, the neighbors' objections, if there are any, and that would weigh in on our...
And then we could potentially set that restriction.
Right.
As far as the height is concerned.
Exactly.
Okay.
As a condition of the variance.
Which
Okay.
we'll still have to do anyway regardless.
Okay.
Are there any neighbors here?
yes.
Okay.
Do you have an additional question? How much, you estimate if you started moving the house back, how much increase in cost would you have? What about the land that you need to support?
I mean, it's
It's
substantial.
hard to quantify.
It's substantial, though.
Because it's all relative to also to what you decided to establish as your finished floor elevation. In other words, from my perspective, if I were to build there, I would keep the finished floor elevation at or equal to the private drive, just because of the presentation, the drive up to the house and so on. But by doing that, you add cost, because you add heights to your piers, and they all have to be piers. So an individual may say, well, that's a consideration, that I like the approach level to the road, but it cost me another $50,000, so I'm going to sink it a little bit. So I'm sorry to give you such a vague answer, but there's so many variables involved. I mean, you can fluctuate with the piering system. It wouldn't be unreasonable to say, a piering system could fluctuate, easily 6 figures, depending upon, whether you go up and down 8, 10 foot.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the appellant?
I don't know if this is a question for you, but there was another house mentioned that received a setback. Do we know on this plan which house that was?
7,300.
Give me 1 second.
7341 has got
There's
a,
the one at the end of the public road.
It received, I think, a front yard.
yeah, 7341 received a front yard setback of 22.
Okay, so,
It's
it's this one here.
it's the one as you come down the private drive, I think.
7,300 is at the end of the cul-de-sac on the river bottom.
7341.
Okay.
And they had a variance for a addition.
The 7341 is
Yes.
one that's
Okay.
negotiating.
Will they have a setback?
Yeah, front yard setback of 22 feet 9 inches.
And that's the-
On 7341?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's to the left as you're coming down the lane.
Right. Okay.
And that's one of the neighbors that you're talking with currently?
Yes. That's correct. And one thing I would like to point out, I know we submitted some information relative to the subdivision covenants, but this subdivision was created in 1977. At that time, the regulations were Hamilton County Regional Planning. Anderson Township did not have their own zoning code. And at that time, the required front yard setback was not referenced to the private drive. It was referenced to the property line, which is in essence similar to what we're requesting, is that 50-foot offset from the property line. However, in addition to what was required at that time, the Regional Planning Commission did indeed approve for these particular two lots, in essence, a variance from those 50-foot setback requirements to a 30-foot offset from the property line. So we haven't even requested the building to be located, as far north as was actually permitted by the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission in 1977.
Okay. Any other questions of the appellant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to speak in support of the variance request?
Can I speak neutral?
Well, we don't have that on the agenda, but...
So you can take it how you want it. So
Okay.
I'm Linda Weber. I own the house at 7341. I am one of the residents that had a variance when I did the remodel. My personal opinion is I really don't care where on the lot the house goes. My concern is more about the max height. So if it was height neutral, I'm good with it. Now, I know John and I trust John. And I know precedent doesn't necessarily get set with regard to what gets decided for lots 22 and 23. Lot 24 is directly south of my home, and any height variance on that particular lot would impact my view significantly, yes. So, and honestly, lot 23, the more it's tucked into the hillside, is actually better for me, because it's hidden by trees.
Okay.
So, you can interpret that how you want.
Questions?
So 23 and 22 are the ones that are in front of us now,
Correct.
and 24 is not.
24 is owned by a different individual.
Okay. And so you really don't have any height objections with 22 and 23?
I would still like lot 23 to be height neutral. So, if they move it further up the hill and,
That they
and go
reduce
to
the
a
height.
first floor, or, a single floor type of thing, yeah, I'm fine with that.
But my impression is that they're not going to move it up the hill. If anything, they're going to have to move it down the hill.
Well, what they're asking for right now is actually to move it closer to the road, which moves it up the hill. So
Right.
yeah, it moves up the elevation.
With that 20-foot
Yeah.
setback.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But you're okay with 20-foot setback?
I'm fine with the 20-foot setback, and I think it was Stan that mentioned the cost from a piering perspective. These lots are very expensive to pier. I also had the unfortunate event of a landslide this year, so I
Understand.
intimately understand the cost of piering in this neighborhood, yes.
Anything else?
So-
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in either, we're just going to go both, neutral? If you want to speak against, we'd love to hear your testimony.
I am Phil Finn. I live at 7300 Riverby Drive. I own also the lot number 9, lot 20, that's also in question here. Just
I'm sorry.
lot 20, which is due north of lot 22.
Okay, thank you.
There have been 4 variances granted in this Rio Grande subdivision since inception. All 4 have been granted that did not block or alter anyone's view of the river. You buy the lands up there because of the river. We're trying to work out a deal with John where that is the case here also. I have a slight problem, though, that, we thought we had an agreement based on the absolute height of the building, and he said, well, no, they're going to take the mean height of the gables. So could be a 5 feet variance there that could block my view potentially. Just to show you when the subdivision was laid out, we had a footprint where you can build in, and if you took the kind of like the average or maybe the north part of that, that would be like a 580-foot average elevation. You go up 35 feet, that's 615 feet. Where John is building, it's about 20-some feet higher up the hill. So we're trying to see if we can work some way out that he restricts his height, or if not, then he moves it back. He does not get the variance he's requesting, because that could then potentially block my building of lot 19. On 19, I mean, I can build up on the top, but then I got 7317 potentially blocking my view there. So I'm looking probably at the lower end of that lot to potentially build sometime in the future. And if I build there, I don't want to make sure I'm not blocked by somebody building on lot 22?
22.
Lot 22. So my concern is if there's not an agreement to the height, then there should not be agreement to the variance going as far up the hill as it is, because it could potentially impact my value substantially. Also, there's a bench on lot 22 that, to me, would make a good place to build that lot, because you'd have a drive, you could come and drive off, you have a private drive off the private road, and then you can bench down there, because there's like a fall off there, you can bench down there and put a house there. So, I mean, to me, the cost would not go up if you went down the hill, 10 or 15 feet, and it would then not bother my view at all. But we're trying to work that out.
Okay. Questions?
So you live at 7300,
Yes, sir.
and lot 19 and lot 20 are also yours.
19 is 7,300. Lot 20 is where I also own. I own both those lots, yes.
Okay.
One with a house, one without.
And so your concern has to do with the future of lot 20,
Correct. Yes, sir.
lot 20.
Yeah.
So, and the potential that if you were to build on lot 20, you would have, the height of lot 22 would restrict the possibility of location for 20.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, if it's blocked, then I could potentially go up the hill further, but then that increase my cost dramatically. So, him saving money, blocking my view, my costs go up. So we're trying to work out a happy medium here where he can build his house at a certain height, then I can use any part of the property I want to for my usage.
Okay.
So you see a future house coming off of that private drive?
Yes, there's a potential to come off the top if we can't work out something, or if we can work out something. But we have, right now, the only way to access that efficiently is off the private drive.
So then you would be closer to the private drive on the house, the potential house on lot 20 would be closer to the private drive than it would be to the...
That could be correct, yes, sir, right.
Do you have any issues now with your current house?
No, my current house is not a problem.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak neutral? Anybody want to have any testimony in opposition of the variance? Yes, sir.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Chair. My name is Joe Trouth. I am an attorney with the law firm of Keating, Muthing, Kleekamp. I represent Mr. Ken Oakes, who lives at 270 Sunny Acres Drive. As you know, this hillside has had many problems over the years. Mr. Andy Thull developed a number of lots that had severe slippage problems and was in litigation for many years. These lots were, the lots in question here, were purchased by Mr. and Mrs. Adams. The one, lot 23, was 1.13 acres. It was purchased for $45,000. Lot 22 was purchased in 2016, and that lot has a house on it. So the lot with the house on it and the lot itself were purchased for $387,500. So my point here is you cannot buy inexpensive property because it has limitations on it and then come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and ask to be bailed out by moving the house around. And I submit to you that granting all these different variances, is a dangerous precedent because somebody's ox is going to get gored. But I really want to stick to the law here, and I want to stick to your code. With regard to the standards for a variance, your code 2.12. Number one is that the property in question was purchased for a fairly low price, especially for a Riverview lot of that size, with the Adams knowing full well what the conditions of the hillside were at the time. So they created their own hardship, which is anathema to granting a variance. Therefore, you cannot ask this board to help you out after you've bought that lot knowing what the conditions of that lot were. The variance is very, very substantial. That the front yard requirement is 50 feet, and they are asking for 22 feet on lot 22 and 30 feet on lot 23. One variance is a 44% variance. That's substantial. The other variance is a 60% variance. That's really substantial. So again, your code says that the variance requested should not be substantial. Both of these are. Criteria 3 in the code states that the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variances. Well, you've already heard some of the concerns, and that's why I'm saying granting these types of variances creates a dangerous precedent under your own code. And it really could affect people down the road. There's many lots there that aren't built on, as the last person who testified just stated. Number 4, with regard to that criteria, would the variance affect the delivery of government services? We don't know that. Water, sewer, garbage, etc. Number 5, the property owner did purchase the property knowing the restrictions of a 50-foot front yard variance. There's been not one scintilla of evidence presented to this board, to the staff, as to whether or not the problem, so to speak, could be remedied without a variance. And we just heard that there's a table or a plateau to build on one of the two lots without doing piering. We've heard that piering costs a lot, but we haven't heard how much. And when you buy a lot, a Riverview lot of 1.13 acres for $45,000, and you're going to sell the finished product with a house on it for $1.25 million, it seems to me that there is money in that budget to accommodate for some piering. So creating your own hardship and then asking for somebody like the Board of Zoning Appeals to bail you out with a variance is not in accordance with the code. And again, in the code, the property owner's predicament can be feasibly obviated through other means, either building on a plateau, doing some piering, keeping the house low, and these are very, very substantial variances, again. The last criteria, of course, is the spirit behind the zoning code being observed. And I think when you ask for a 60% or a 44% variance, knowing full well what you bought just last year, 2016, for a very reasonable price. The predicament, is not in accordance with the spirit behind the code. So I would ask this board to consider those factors that are in your code and apply them as they should be applied. And I believe the variances should be denied. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Do you live in that area?
I do not, no. No, my client does.
Your client lives where?
My client lives up the hill. I gave you his address. It's 270 Sunny Acres Drive.
So that's above?
Yes, it's above. And he and his neighbors are concerned about hillside stability, views, all those types of things.
Okay.
And there's been a history there.
But so they live on a hillside themselves?
They do, but they're older homes.
Built?
Sunny Acres was built, I think, gosh, 30 years ago, something like that.
When
maybe
we were
more.
both young men?
What's, I'm sorry?
When we were both young men? So I guess my question is that did the person who you're representing own this land down here?
I'm sorry, own
this land, a Riverby Drive?
No, he owns his lot on Sunny
Up
Acres
above.
and his house, yeah.
And his concern has to do with...
Stability and views,
Yeah.
in granting variances and so forth, yes.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But his view isn't obstructed.
No, his is not.
It
no.
could be ruined, though, if the whole hillside went down.
Well, I mean, the hillside stability is one issue, but also granting a variance of this size here could mean somebody else comes in and asks for the exact same thing on a lot right near him or next to him.
Okay.
That is in Riverby.
Yeah, but then he'd have you represent him anyway.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, but I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of a disconnect. I recognize that it's our responsibility to understand the codes, and that's why we have a staff and that kind of thing. But the long and the short is that we're here to, I think, put the human element into it. And I think it's important to recognize that there's dangers there, but at the same time, if there were substantial enough dangers, then why would the county or why would the state have allowed that to even be developed?
Well, the question is, why did Andy Thule develop it and then run into all kind of litigation? I mean, he was in years and years of litigation on slippage issues. And there's not been any...
Down there?
Yes. There's not been any testimony at all or evidence submitted about the condition of those hillsides, about the stability of those hillsides, and what needs to be done, instead of just moving the house up the hill and building it, on a slab. Could you build it on that tabletop below, or are you going to have to do some substantial piering? That's normally what has to happen. So, this is your code. I'm not citing anything that I just made up.
I understand.
This is your code. And if you go through it point by point, they don't qualify under any of them. And that's fairly egregious violation of the code that they're asking for.
Anything else?
You mentioned there was previously a house on one of these lots?
I didn't say that.
I thought you, okay.
I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think that's true.
No, there's not, okay.
Okay.
I thought I heard you say one was bought for like 300 something.
Oh, no. One of the homes that they bought it not as lot 23, I forget which lot it is, not as a single lot, but as a lot with a house.
So did any of these lots previously have that house, or do we know?
I believe the house is still there.
Is it lot 21?
This house?
Yeah. That's it.
Yes, there is still currently a house there. We're discussing these two, which have never had a house on them.
Okay.
Right, so what I'm saying is 22 was bought along with 21, and the way the auditor had it, it was a lot and a house with a lot for $387,000. And then the other lot was bought for $45,000. And those are from the auditor's records.
Okay.
Anything else? So if I understand your testimony here tonight, you're representing a client who is, has property within the area. Your client, as I understand the testimony, is unconcerned of any blockages of the views if houses were to be constructed as in accordance with the variance request. You've mentioned your concern about geotechnical issues.
Yes.
Which, I mean, there is a portion of these lots that can be built in accordance with the code. They could go ahead right now and build a house.
Right.
So the variance request, in my mind, doesn't have anything to do with the geotechnical issue, because they could move these houses into a buildable area of the lot, and that would not mitigate your concern regarding geotechnical issues as evidenced with the variance.
Well, the engineer, their engineer is saying that they probably have to pier.
That might be.
Yeah.
Your concern is about hill slippage, and you're saying that we should not grant this variance because of building upon this lot, and yet I'm saying that...
No, not just building upon the lot, but moving these houses around on that particular lot. I mean, if there is indeed a table to build on, and you have to pier there, you know, there's just no evidence that it's going to be safe to move this house up to within, 22 feet or whatever of the driveway, and that it's going to be stable. The other issue is Mr. and Mrs. Adams owns a lot immediately adjacent to my client's house, and he's tried to come before this board before, but withdrew his application to seek a variance on that lot. So what I'm saying is these variances can create bad precedent by, granting a variance here and there of 60% or 44%, and then Mr. and Mrs. Adams go to the lot right adjacent to my client's lot and say, hey, I want that same variance there. Precedent.
I'm trying to understand what your objection is to the variance, and what I'm finding is geotechnical notwithstanding, because they can build on the lot.
Right,
Okay.
they can build on the lot.
Your client does not have an objection to construction of the homes as requested in the variance, because they're not going to block his views. Is that what your objection is that we are not in abidance with these criteria of how we grant a variance?
No, I think that they should be able, and they can, without even coming to you, build on the lot as the code says.
Okay.
Okay? So my client has nothing to say about that. And technically...
No, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Right.
And this is critical here.
But he's asking for a huge variance to move up the hill closer to where my client is, and he's asking for a 60% and a 44% variance on the two lots, okay?
No, I understand.
Yeah.
And you brought up the fact that your client does not have a concern with the views, and you brought up a concern with geotechnical, and we're going to build on these lots one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, the geotechnical's moot.
The
Okay.
geotechnical is not moot because they're saying that they need to move up the hill because it's cost prohibitive to build where they can build without a variance. But there's no evidence in the record about that. So the geotechnical is not moot. They're saying,
Well, you were talking about hill slippage.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm trying to understand if you build it in accordance with the variance, or if you build it down in the middle where they're allowed to, how does that affect hill slippage?
Well, all I'm saying is if you allow people to move all around with a lot of different variances, you could create more potential hill slippage. Nobody has said to you, hey, this hill isn't going to start slipping again like it did 20 years ago. I mean, I just think that, you got to follow the code because of the precedent, and that's one of the main issues.
And I agree that that's probably the biggest point that you're making here tonight.
Okay.
And
Well, that's what I said at the beginning. I said my legal points are the key.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else want to speak in opposition of the variance? Hi.
My name is Jessica Worth. I'm an attorney at Dinsmore and Scholl. I'm here on behalf of Robert Betts and Thomasina Betts. They are own neighboring property, kind of in the same neighborhood as Mr. Charles' clients. I believe their address is 7361 River Point Drive. And we basically just join in the same arguments that Mr. Charles just made, so I don't want to repeat everything that he just said. But I would just reiterate that we believe the code should be followed, and that significant weight should be given to the fact that they had knowledge of the zoning restrictions when they purchased the property. So that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Questions?
Is this house, you said it's directly up the hill, just like the other address?
It's basically north and east of the lots, or I'm sorry, north and west of the lots.
And why are they objecting? Because
Thank you.
of the geotechnical logics?
Correct.
So, but
They're just concerned about...
have they been sued as well?
No,
So, but they're neighbors?
correct.
Okay. Well, they live on big lots.
We're going to bring up the Hamilton County CAGIS map here so we can get a better handle of where these other
Properties are.
properties are. Yes.
Do they know each other?
Who?
The Sunset Drive and River Point Drive?
I'm not sure.
Sunny Acres.
Sunny Acres? Oh, Sunny Acres.
I'm not sure.
Just curious.
I didn't get enough details about the relationships.
They retain different attorneys, so.
Right.
Okay, so
There's Sunny Acres is up there.
here's Riverby, and Sunny Acres is up here.
Okay.
And then here's River Point.
So my clients are on River Point.
Your client's on River Point, your client's on Sunny Acres?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sunny Acres looks like it's further north than River Point.
Yes. These are the two lots that we are talking about.
She's on Google.
Okay.
She can go to the Hamilton County auditors, that she can get address numbers.
Can you type in the address? It'll point to the house typically.
For Sunny Acres?
Or
Just 7361 River Point.
7361.
River Point, yeah. Yeah.
And keep in mind the lots are right down here.
Okay.
So you're almost directly west.
See where the fork and Riverby Drive, to your right,
Yeah.
to your right, no, right underneath
The R.
okay, it's on the, I'm sorry.
They're down here.
So they're right here.
Okay. All right, and there are questions for the,
They didn't object to the road being built down there?
Which road?
Ohio River Scenic Byway?
guess not.
I was just curious.
I don't know.
How long have they lived up there?
I don't know that. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I know it's been a while. They've been living there for a while.
For a
I don't
long
know.
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I would just like to see the Sunny Acres house, if we could. It's 270.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This Mr. Betts gentleman actually built these homes. Just a little footnote.
Yes.
Which is kind of ironic.
Yes, so he built my home at 7341. He built the home that John and Monica owned at the end of the drive. And I know for sure that he also built the
That's
house
interesting.
that's directly to the east of my home.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? We're trying to bring this up here. Any other comments or questions to?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition to granting the variance?
I would like to point out that Hamilton County has a hillside trust, that in order for them to get a building permit to build the homes would have to go through that permitting as well.
Okay. Thank you. Does the appellant wish to come back and add anything as either rebuttal or additional comments?
Just a couple things. I know we looked at this Cage's map, and you know, what you're seeing is it represents a horizontal separation, but I guess in my mind, bigger criterion is the vertical separation, and you're a couple 100-foot plus for both of those structures above our proposed structure. And then also just wanted to, in reference to the precedence of the requested setback, just wanted to point out that at 7341 Riverby, there was a front yard setback granted of 22 foot 9 inches in the past.
Okay.
That's the one I was asking.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're going to keep this public hearing portion open.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that the board wants to ask or get any other testimony about these variance requests?
No.
Okay. So then I think at this point, we're going to leave the public hearing portion of both of these cases open, and then we will go on to our final case tonight, which is case number 25-2017 BZA, which is a variance request for a fence. Thank you.
January 4th. Can I get them in a minute? Okay.
Can I ask, I think before we've actually closed the public portion and just left our deliberation until next week, are we saying we're going to leave the public portion open this time for next week also? Or next month, I'm sorry?
My suggestion is that we do such that, you know, if they're able to come to an agreement with the neighbors and they're withdrawing their opposition, or,
Okay.
because I think we would go through that same process next time, which is we would ask for people to then object, if they were still in opposition of the variance requests.
Makes sense.
And I guess we'll see you guys again next week, or next month.
Unfortunately.
That's not so bad.
Okay, going on to case number 25-2017. The staff would present their report.
Absolutely. So the applicant for this case is Anderson Township on behalf of Robert Kinney, who is the property owner. The location is at 1187 Coral Sea Drive. It's Book 500, page 273, parcel 285. It's Zone C residence, and a variance is requested for a privacy-style fence to be located in the front yard area where the maximum permitted is 4 foot high, 75% open, per Article 5.2A9. So this is the property map. Let me get the laser pointer again. So this is actually Coral Sea. This is Beachmont Avenue. So the location where they're requesting the fence is along Beachmont Avenue, which is where the fence being in a front yard comes into play. So this is currently a vacant lot owned by Mr. Kinney, who owns this property. Here's the aerial of the lot. Here is the topography map. It's relatively flat. So this is the submitted site plan showing the 6-foot privacy fence here. There is a pedestrian access from Coral Sea to Beachmont, which corresponds with a future Beachmont sidewalk plan that is proposed through here. So the following are pictures of the property. So this is standing at Coral Sea looking into it. This is standing on the property looking west. The neighboring residence is over here. This is looking towards Beachmont Avenue. So you can kind of see through here. The neighbor also has a 6-foot high privacy fence along Beachmont Avenue and in the side. This is looking from the rear of the property towards Coral Sea. This is looking towards Beachmont Avenue. This is the pedestrian access that I was talking about. It's already a paved sidewalk along with the 6-foot high privacy fence. This privacy fence is proposed to have an additional side yard 6-foot high fence, but with a 3-foot kind of a buffer so that it's not right up against the sidewalk. This is looking back towards Coral Sea from Beachmont. This is looking towards, I think it's west, like skyline's down here. Again, this is the same view looking toward down Beachmont Avenue. And this is looking towards 5 Mile from the property, and this shows the neighbor's 6-foot high fence. So staff finds that this variance is not substantial. The applicant is requesting a similar 6-foot high fence to be located along Beachmont Avenue, similar to the fence at the neighboring property. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties will not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Since the property fence will be similar to the neighboring fence, the essential character will not be altered. Like I stated before, the proposed fence will also leave an existing sidewalk connection from Coral Sea to Beachmont Avenue unobstructed. The variance will not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. The property owner's predicament cannot feasibly be obviated through some other method other than a variance. While the property owner currently does not have a fence, with the construction of the sidewalk, the addition of the fence will ensure extra security and privacy both from pedestrian and vehicular traffic on Beachmont Avenue.
Questions of staff?
It's a vacant lot?
It is. I think the neighbor might be using it as firewood storage, but that's it.
Do you think they'll ever build on it? Well, I guess that's not a question for you.
I'm not sure. There used to be a house on it.
It's not relevant.
There used to be a house on it, but it was torn down, so.
Okay.
And this is the fence that was granted back
2011.
the 2011
Yes.
case.
Yes.
Okay, you mentioned that the fence was going to be held back from the sidewalk,
3 feet.
3 feet.
I believe it's in the site plan. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little bit off.
Okay, and if you could go back to the picture that was looking towards 5 Mile.
Towards 5 Mile? Okay.
Okay, so that fence was moved back. Okay, so the sidewalk can go in without disruption of that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Is vegetation on the subject property going to be removed?
I'm not sure.
If you go to one of the pictures looking west, there's all this vegetation. Are they taking that out?
That might be a question for the applicant.
Okay. We'll let...
It was not stated in the
It
letter.
has to be, because it looks like it's encroaching.
Anything else? Would the appellant come forward, please? Identify yourself. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Tom Crusoe. I'm a planner with Anderson Township. One of my major jobs is to build sidewalks, and I am the project manager for the sidewalk project on Beachmont Avenue. To answer your question about the vegetation, we will have to remove some of that vegetation to build the sidewalk. And again, as the staff reported, there was no need for the sidewalk or for the fence until we came to build the sidewalk on Beachmont Avenue. This is an important connection for us on Beachmont Avenue. It will connect Salem Road through the 5-mile intersection onto Forest Road and on through the Anderson downtown area, which we are building right now. It will also match the sidewalk that we've built on the north side of Beachmont Avenue, and it has been part of our Anderson Trails plan since 1998. We've gotten approvals from ODOT to build it, and so we feel it's a very important project. The reason why we're making the application is because we are asking for an easement from the property owner, and he has concerns about security and privacy. There's also been some history in the past with the township in terms of a commercial property that was allowed behind his house and some privacy issues that were not addressed at that time that he felt should have been addressed. So we think it's a fair trade. A similar variance was given for the next door neighbor's property, and we hope that the board will grant the variance.
Questions?
So the township will be building the fence?
Yes.
Where does the property owner live?
He lives, if you go back, he lives next door to that.
Where the fence, that fence is?
The other side,
Oh,
right there.
oh, right here.
Just to give you some history on this property,
With the benches, those benches,
the
those stadium seats?
stadium seats, Tim, that's a view of your house that they see right now, am I correct? So that's his house right there.
That one right there?
I can't see your finger, but
Oh.
yes, there we go,
There.
that house. Yes, so the history on what happened is there was a older woman who had a hoarding problem that became very serious, and it came to pass that the house needed to be torn down for health reasons, and Mr. Kinney bought the property after the situation was resolved.
What kind of fence are you going to put up?
Very similar to what's next door, a cedar.
A cedar fence?
Yes.
Is it going to have a border at the top? No, just kidding.
It won't be one of those stockade fences. It'll be a nicer.
Nice cedar fence.
Right.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody that wants to speak in support of the variance request?
I do.
You didn't swear in either.
Right.
Did you swear in?
Yes,
No.
sir. I swear in.
Did you?
No, sir, I
she
didn't.
didn't.
Would you raise your right hand?
Yes, sir.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so
Yes,
help
sir.
you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. State your name, address.
My name is Lorraine Steigerwald, and I live just on the left side of that property that has the fence, existing fence. We also have, I'm going to say 10 or 15 feet on Beachmont, which I guess I'm going to have the same kind of fence because we have an existing split rail fence. So,
Ma'am.
but my concern, it's no concern, but
What's your address?
as you look down our
Excuse me,
whole,
what's your address again?
mine is 1186 Coral Sea.
Okay, can you bring up the, she's talking about some definite stuff. Can you bring up the map? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you are right there.
I live right next to Comey Shepherd.
Yep.
My property
Okay.
is right next to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So your 15 feet is down, right along, right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
And like I say, we have an existing little split rail fence, but we're going to also get the, well, whatever, but we're also going to have the, well, I thought we had. But anyway, it's important for our whole street to have a big fence, because you're going to tear down all the existing shrubs that have been there for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years. And our whole street, coming up the street, you can just beach mutts right there. And that fence would certainly help our whole neighborhood, my whole street, I think. And
So you are speaking in favor
Oh,
of
yes,
granting this
sir.
variance request for
Yes, sir.
1187 Coral Sea?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
How long have you lived at your house?
Well, I have actually lived there off and on since 1956. Beachmont was a little two-lane highway, and anyway, I've been there off and on, so.
We were a lot younger then, weren't we?
But anyway, thank you.
Any questions for? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in favor of granting the variance? Anybody want to speak in opposition of granting the variance? Any other questions or testimony that the board needs? Shall we close the public hearing on this case?
So moved.
So closed. All right. So we are now going back to and deliberating the one case we have, which is the one we just heard, which was case number 25, regarding the 6-foot fence. The other two, we still have the public hearing open. So who'd like to get us started on this case?
I don't see a problem. I think it makes a lot of sense. And since we are putting a sidewalk, that was one of the elements that I didn't know about. I guess I didn't read it as well as I should have. But I think it makes a lot of sense, quite frankly.
I can add some comments too, I work on the Transportation Committee with Tom, and I know the sidewalks are a big feature of the community, and it's been in the public eye, and a lot of people are in favor of this. I think the sidewalk especially, even that's not in front of us, the sidewalk is important, but the privacy for the residents who, will face all that traffic, kind of go hand in hand with that sidewalk. So the sidewalk helps benefit the community, and the fence helps benefit the local residents over there.
It makes the central business district more viable and walkable.
Okay. Anything else?
I have no issue with it, especially being that a previous fence next door was allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So long ago.
Okay.
I'm sorry to see the vegetation go, but I understand the need for the space to get the sidewalk in, and of course the fence will replace the vegetation that they have to remove, so
Right.
it's a good solution.
Okay. A motion?
I'll move that we approve it, that it be completed within a year, or start it within a year and complete it within 2.
Any other conditions that we want to put on the motion?
And it be in accordance to the conditions or the codes of the county, of the township.
Well, we're going to, we are going to reference the plan, and I'm trying to find a date on this.
November 11th, or 17th.
17th.
Yeah.
Okay. So in conformance with the drawing,
In conformance with the drawing dated November 17th of 2017.
I'll second the motion.
we have a motion and a second to grant the variance. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Sion.
Aye.
Mr. Halpin.
Aye.
Mr. Nasilevich.
Aye.
Ms. Wagner.
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye. Okay. Thank you. We are now going to go into recess as staff prepares the final journaling of our decision, which we will also vote on tonight. So you'll be back in the office tomorrow, Tom, so it will be there waiting for you, or pretty close. What? Nope. She said. Monday. On one, at the end of that paragraph, can you make reference to the variance request and the case? What was that?
11-2011 BZA.
11-2011. BZA.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me read that.
Is that the front yard, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all 'cause you're trying
Yeah.
to believe it or not.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Backyard to me.
Mm-hmm.
It fronts on Beachwood.
I'm glad you put in the, at the end of 4 there, when we talk about extra security and privacy, because you made mention of that. Good. Okay? Okay? Motion to approve and journal.
I'll move that we approve the proposal to build a fence, and that it, I don't know.
Motion to approve and journalize.
Motion to approve and journalize.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve and journal the case. Any discussion? Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Mr. Sion?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Nasilevich?
Aye.
Ms. Wagner?
Aye.
Mr. Haber?
Aye.
Okay, I got it.
Any other matters to come in front of the board?
We need to do elections.
We will be doing them in
January?
January or February.
Challenges, I might not be here in January.
We can do them. It's okay to do them.
Transport bills when you come back.
I gotta check the calendar now.
So that puts you in charge for January.
Lucky me.
I mean, as the course goes. And you'll, I mean, this is it. And then just make sure that you got a secretary, elected for the meeting, so you can take care of the paperwork
I will be out on January
in
4th.
January.
Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Will we have enough for a quorum?
You've got 3 of the 5.
And then we'll have,
Backups?
An alternate.
I can have Jen here too, as
Okay.
well.
Yep. So you'll have 3 of the 5, so, yep.
Are we adjourned?
Anything else?
Nope.
Let's go. Thank you. Appreciate it.